Well, Razorback fans, we know Bobby Petrino's most interesting and intriguing part of this upcoming Razorback football season, but something that Taylor Green said really stood out to me and to many others. So let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon at Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all new customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something new for everyone, every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. I know I'm a little later here with the podcast, but there's a reason behind it. But still, there's so much going on, and it's been really great week of having Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis joining me on the Locked On Razorbacks each and every afternoon too, and that's going to continue on pretty much all the time. So we got a great response from that. Really appreciate everyone checking it out and being a part of it each and every day and making us here at Locked On your first listen every day. So a lot of things to get to today, but mainly recapping a lot that was said yesterday from some of the players, but also Coach Pittman, who met with the media, and we had a chance to hear from him and kind of get an idea of what's going on with fall camp and all of that, because it's amazing that we're less than 3 weeks away from the season. And, we could go through a lot of the different stuff that really stood out, but as you see there in the caption on the graphic, and as you may have already heard, Bobby Petrino is the offensive coordinator for Arkansas. It's kind of crazy to think about. But something that Taylor Green or any of the offensive players that they get to say about Petrino is always going to be more intriguing to me. And maybe I'm alone in this, and that's fine. But I believe that with Bobby Petrino, whatever he does, whatever he says, whatever he talks about, I think on Tuesday, we're going to have a chance to hear from him. There's just automatic interest. And that also goes with the players that talk about him. And Taylor Green, the quarterback for Arkansas, is one of those guys. Now, we're going to play this clip. We're going to kind of break it down, but we're going to talk mainly about the spirit of it, including also some other interesting things. But take a listen to Taylor Green when he was asked about the Petrino impact.
I'll say first, just a mentality, mentality of every single time we get the ball, our goal is to score. And he's like, we are going to score. And Coach Pitt said belief, and that's really big too. Anything that he says, we're not going to question. We believe, if he says this coverage, our progression is this, we're going to do it every single time. And I mean, when we're a little slow, he'll have the offense bring it up, and he'll say a couple words, but that's just the thing. Just mentality and just the belief that we have, that every single time we're going to step on the field, we're going to score.
So hearing that mentality, you may think that it's easy or cliche or whatever, but what I look at it as is consistent. Because when it comes to the game of football, you have to have confidence in yourself. You got to have confidence in you as an individual, but you also have to have confidence in what you're doing. I mean, there is no other sport, at least to the level of football, where you have 11 players on the field at once. 11 players. And if you think about the actual time, we'll talk about offense here first, because I guess it can relate to both offense and defense, but let's just look at offense. You look at the timing of it all, you have about 5-10 seconds on each play at the absolute most, that's from when the ball snapped to when the play ends. It is a very, very, very small window. And so you're talking about getting 11 guys to come together as a collective unit that have one play in front of them, one job in front of them, and all 11 of them have to execute that in order for the play to be successful, while also hoping that the other 11 guys that you're going up against that are also trying to execute their game plan, maybe you get an advantage because of some sort of weakness or some sort of mismatch that you have. There's so much to go in with that small window in that amount of people. So when you have a coach like Bobby Petrino, who has been around college football for 20 years, 20 plus years, been successful everywhere he's been, and the offensive mind that he has, you have to have confidence in all of that that's going to work. Because let's be honest, we've seen when confidence wasn't there. Last year in offense, there was no confidence in what that team was doing. None of those guys on the field had any confidence in what was going on, what they were doing. Talk about the Chad Morris era. There was no confidence in anything. Right? So you know what it looks like when a team doesn't have confidence, but you also know what it looks like when they do. And to have that approach of not just we want to score, but we're going to score. That's a belief to where it's like, yeah, everybody wants to. Everybody wants to score. I mean, it's the point of offense. It's what all offensive coordinators want to do. They want to score. But when it's an assassin-like approach, when it's so intense that it's almost a type of feeling that goes throughout the entire team and the offensive players and all of that, like it's almost a culture-like thing. And I remember when Bobby Petrino was head coach at Arkansas, and I know I keep referencing that, but because of him being head coach right now, it's kind of the thing you got to reference. But I remember when he was head coach, I always thought that in football leading up to that point, there was always kind of like set rules, or at least unwritten rules. Like if you got the ball first, for instance, if you won the coin toss, not to get the ball first. If you won the coin toss, it was almost like an automatic thing where you're like, hey, you want to take the ball in the second half. You want to defer. You want to kick. It seemed like that was a very common thing. In fact, because again, I was going off of Houston Nutt. It seemed like Houston Nutt did that all the time. And a lot of coaches did. But then when Bobby Petrino came in, suddenly it wasn't that. It was maybe depending on the match, maybe depending on what it was, but almost more often than not, Arkansas took the ball first. And then I look back at not only that in the game, but also in these plays. Remember that LSU game in 2010 in Little Rock, 4th and 3, Joe Adams, Burns, Tyrann Mathieu. That was a ballsy call. Same thing in that same game before halftime, 6 seconds left, going to go. Like 6 seconds, 80 yards to go. Most people are just taking a knee and getting out. But Arkansas went for the home run and it paid off. I think of the Alabama game in 2010, the Ronnie Wingo wheel route, second play of the game. People forget that the play before that went for like 30 plus yards to Jarius Wright on a slant. And when that was happening, I remember that's when you had that aggressive assassin-like mentality. Most people in that situation would be like, okay, well, we're going to defer to the second half, but Arkansas didn't. When they took the ball, they're like, this is the defending champs. This is the number one team in the country. We're at home. Our emotions are extremely high. Like that, the crowd is insane. Let's try to settle ourselves down a little bit, start running the ball and establish. Nope. Go for the throat. Go for the throat right off the bat. To me, that is the mentality that Taylen Green was discussing and the type of mentality that Bobby Petrino brings. It's not about, because if you are really, truly believing that, it's like we're about to score, we're going to score. If you have that mentality, you're not just being like, okay, well, let's establish the run and let's see if we can get some things going here in the beginning and wait. Or 6 seconds left, it's like, let's take a knee and get out. Like we've done okay, but let's not make any mistakes here. You're not afraid to make the mistakes. You're afraid to miss out on scoring. I love the offensive mentality of that. Because no matter how much time's left on the clock, no matter what position you're at on the field, if you truly have that confidence, if Bobby Petrino truly has that confidence in his team, then he's going to trust them to make the plays. He's going to trust them to execute the game plan and to get yardage and to get in a position to score. He's going to trust them to do that. Just like the team, whenever a play call comes in, whenever a certain check comes in, whatever it is, those players are going to trust Bobby Petrino and saying, well, yeah, coach, I mean, he calls these plays for a reason. He must know something. He must be seeing something. And when you have that entire feel among the 11 guys on the field and your offensive coordinator and your head coach and as a program, I don't want to say it's easy, but it is much easier to, as a fan, be confident too. Arkansas is not going to win every game this year. Arkansas's offense is not going to score on every possession. There's going to be games they don't score a lot of points. I mean, let's look at it in reality, but that's the mentality you have to have if you're Arkansas. And I'll end on this note too. Arkansas, when I was in college for 7.5 years, but I remember my freshman year was Darren McFadden's last year. And so I was very lucky over the next 3 to 4 years to be a part of the Bobby Petrino era. And in doing that, I was the same age as a lot of the Razorback players during that time, and I was friends with a few of them. And one of the things that I always thought was so interesting, because you had, Bobby Petrino had this aura of meanness and just yelling at you, and just you could see him on the sidelines. You saw him when he was yelling at the referees. Like, there was so much going on, and it was so intimidating. And I remember I asked one of the players, I'm like, dude, like, is he as big of a jerk as it looks like? Is he that mean? Is he that, like, next level awful, like, horrible to you? Like, to the, you hear these stories and whatnot. And I'll never forget his response, because it was like, yeah, he is. He's the meanest dude I've ever been around. But we win. And you can't help respect it when you win. And ever since then, I'm like, hey, listen, you can approach the game however you want. You can do whatever you want. And players can feel a certain way. And it may come across like, oh, I wish they weren't that mean, or he wasn't that mean, or whatever. Folks, when you win, as a fan, you don't care. And as a player, and playing for that coach, you'll put up with a lot of it if there's a means to an end, and if it makes sense, and if it helps you be successful, if it helps you win. That's the Petrino factor. Yes, it's about X's and O's. Yes, it's about drawing up plays and getting guys in good position. But you know what it's also about? Swagger, confidence. Every time you step on the field, we're going to go score. All right, folks, we're going to get into some interesting video, or a clip from Sam Pittman in the press conference here in just a second. But, folks, I want to tell you about our friends over at Home Field here in just a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, we know that our friends over at Home Field Apparel, a lot of you have been around where you've probably heard me talk about Home Field in previous years. In fact, I'm wearing a Home Field shirt right now. Look at that. See, got the Razorback stuff and everything. It's pretty awesome. I love Home Field, and I was so excited to hear that they were going to be a part of Locked On Razorbacks for the rest of this year. They have some of the greatest apparel that you can ever check out. Some really cool vintage things. I know a lot of you have seen me wear this shirt. I have the 1994 National Championship Slobber Hog gray shirt that I've worn too. I have the Never Yield Razorback hat with the little, almost looks like you're wearing a sailor hat. And it's all from Home Field. It's incredible, the type of collegiate apparel that they have. And they're based right in Indianapolis, and they've been doing it a long time. And they're so, and like, here's the thing, the logos are really great, but the comfort level is even better. Like, it's one thing to have cool logos, but it's about the comfort. It's about the sizing. It's about the style that really sets them apart from everybody else. And they're gearing up everybody for the 2024 season. They're containing 3 never-before-seen items for your school that are not suitable or not available for anywhere else. Like, for Arkansas, it's unique stuff. Okay? It's stuff like this. Like, you're not going to see this type of font of anything anywhere else. And you also are going to need some new gear for the football season. So why not go ahead and check them out with the best? Get the best of the best and stand out with some of those from Home Field Apparel. Again, I love their designs. I love the comfort. You got to check it out. So check out their website. You can see all the different apparel that they have to choose from at homefieldapparel.com. And even if you got somebody, it's a house divided thing where it's a Razorback fan in your house, but your wife or your husband, some other, well, nobody's perfect. But they also have apparel for your school as well. It's online shopping that's really convenient, be delivered straight to your door, and it gets you ready for the upcoming season in style. And appreciate everybody, of course, being a part of Locked On Razorbacks and always having some fun with us when we talk about all the things with Razorbacks. But be sure to check out, again, the greatest apparel when it comes to your Arkansas Razorbacks. It is the Home Field Apparel. You can check them out again at homefieldapparel.com. Also, I want to tell everybody about our fans and friends over at FanDuel. We know FanDuel, hey, sportsing aren't always sportsing, right? We got a little slower time. I know the Olympics have been going on. I haven't really cared, I'll just be honest. But hey, football season's going to be here before we know it. We know that NFL preseason is starting to rev up. It's getting here, folks. We're just right there. It's getting here. So here's the thing. It's still summertime, so get the great deals because right now in this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everybody, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and make the most out of your summer. It's FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. What a great clip this is about to be. So Arkansas has a lot of injuries, apparently. And if you don't believe me, just hear from Sam Pittman. Because, we're always interested about who's playing, who's available, who's all that. Well, Sam Pittman went ahead and made the list for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Take a listen.
I can just go down. I was anticipating this. Pat Kuda's got a back, so we're resting it. We've rested it for a few days. We feel like we'll get him back. I'm not positive. It may be another week. It may be another week and a half, but we feel good that we're going to get him back. Joffrey Brown, we held him today. That was us. He's had some knee surgeries and things, and we've been holding him some in practice as well. So that was a neat deal. Luke Brown is going to have a trim on his cartilage that he had worked on before. So that was 2 days ago. John Hill, Luke Has, Anton Junkaj, and Marquise Robinson are out with concussions, and they've all been out different times. So depending on when they get back, I think Anton was the first one, so I anticipate him being back this coming week. Marquise would be the next one, and then Luke's was just recent, and John Hills was just recent. Rashad Dubinion didn't play today because of a knee swelling on his knee. Jaquinta Jackson has his mild ankle sprain. Tyrone Broden, we didn't play him today from turf toe. I imagine some of these guys will be back tomorrow, but we just held them today. Dylan has a back. He'll probably be back tomorrow as well. Jaheim Singletary's got a hamstring, and Vito's got a pull growing muscle. Obviously, we know he's a kicker, so we held him. I don't have any. The longest one that I think is going to be out is Luke Brown because he's going to have to be out for a couple of weeks. But the rest of these guys will be back. I think if we forced half of that group to play today, I think they could have. Did I miss Armstrong?
Yeah.
Armstrong's got a slight hamstring too. I think they could have played if we pushed them. When I was in high school, I had a hamstring and I had a groin, and I don't know if I'd have got out of the way that damn guy hit me in front of my knee or not, but we didn't play anybody today. We're trying to get better today, and we felt like as a staff that it'd be better to hold these kids, get them back healthy, and then because we still have another scrimmage and some other live reps going on, so we decided to do that.
Holy crap. Like, I was almost took a nap during that. Like, oh my gosh, the amount of people that are injured. Well, here's the thing. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, you don't want anyone to get hurt. But here's the thing. You get banged up all the time in fall camp. You're going to have some injuries in fall camp. It's just part of it. Some guys are going to get held out as precautionary. Some guys are going to get held out because they're actually hurt. Whatever it is, it's part of it. It's not great, but it's part of it. And so for Sam Pittman, and to kind of go through the list there, I know it was a lot. It was a lot of players that got mentioned, but it's still just kind of the wear and tear of what happens in fall. It's a matter of having long-term injuries. And as far as all those go, he went on to say that there was, of all those guys that are injured, only one of them really looked to be possibly long-term. And but it's just, I'm glad that we get the updates on who's in and who's out. But it's also like when you hear it like that, you're like, golly, are they going to have anybody to play? especially the wide receivers. That's the stuff that is, if there was a little bit of a concern, it would be Andrew Armstrong and Ty Broden kind of dealing with injuries. Because I'm telling you right now, I think both of those potentially could be like on those, when you got a 6'5", 6'7" guys on the outside, and they're both extremely gifted in their speeds, it could get crazy. It could get truly crazy and a lot of fun. So there's your injury report, brought to you by Sam Pittman, apparently. So, but we'll also talk about a very important position, one of the most important positions, the backup quarterback. We'll talk about that next. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, we know that in this time, you always want to make sure that you're having the best times whenever you're going to your sporting events or your concerts or your comedy shows or whatever it may be. Well, you need a ticket. And one of those great experiences that you'll have when you go to those shows with your ticket is having the best price and getting it from the best app. And that's why you got to check out the Gametime app. It is the best app when it comes to all of your tickets for any events. We're talking about shows, concerts, comedies, sports, any baseball, basketball, football, everything. It's always about the Gametime app. They have last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying at the last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theaters, and so much more, as well as flash deals where you can save even more in exclusive in-app deals and select seats ahead of the game or the event. And one of the cool things about it is they have seat views. So if you are new to a certain stadium and to an arena, you don't really know what the setup's like, you don't know if these tickets that you're getting are good or bad, well, they're able to offer you an actual view from your seat. You get to look at the picture and you see, oh, okay, that's how far away I'm going to be from the stage or from the court or from the field or whatever it may be. So it's the best. It's the lowest price guarantee. And if you find a place that you get tickets cheaper, they will credit you 110% of the difference. It's that great. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, open and create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. The backup quarterback's always a very important position, right? Right. Taylor Green's QB1. We know that. It's guaranteed. There's no questions about it. No questions asked. It's the guy. He's the man. And I'm for it. I'm really excited to see what he's capable of. But let's just be clear about one thing. You never want to see your quarterback get hurt, but odds are you're going to see the backup quarterback have to come in at some point. I looked over like the past 10 years for Arkansas football alone. Do you want to know how many seasons Arkansas had in that 10-year span where their starting quarterback did not get hurt or banged up or whatnot, and the backup had to come in? I'm not talking about garbage time. I'm talking about like in a significant game where the backup quarterback had to come in. Like every single year, but two. If I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure I did that. I think it was Brandon Allen in 2014. Well, no, actually, no, that's right. So I think it's actually all but 1 year from last year because KJ did play most of the game last year, most of the season last year. But the point is, it doesn't happen very often. That's my point. So based on trends and everything, odds are you're going to see the backup quarterback this year for Arkansas. You don't want it to happen. You hope there's healthiness, but it's just how football is. Well, Sam Pittman talked about who's the backup quarterback.
Well, I mean, Malachi's definitely the two right now. I mean, there's no, KJ and Boda are fighting it out there to continue to move up on the depth chart. But Malachi's played. I mean, you'll have to ask Taylor about that because he sees him in a different light than I do because he knows all his reads and all that. But I tell you what, he's throwing the ball well. He's getting the ball out of his hand, and he's a terrific runner as well.
So there you have it. Malachi Singleton is your guy. And I'm fine with that. Like, because I really liked what I saw from him in the spring. And I just like how they carry themselves and everything. And it goes back to the whole thing with Bobby Petrino too, folks. Like Bobby Petrino, when he was at Arkansas originally, every quarterback had their own playbook, pretty much. Like it was plays and playbook catered towards those specific quarterbacks. Whether it was Ryan Mallett, Tyler Wilson, even Brandon Mitchell, like all those guys had their own set of plays and playbooks and how it was handled. And that's how it's going to be this year again. And You just got to roll with it and be happy for it. Because I don't want to see Malachi Singleton in a game because of Taylon Green getting injured. Nobody wants that. But it's the SEC, it's a grind. So especially if Taylon Green starts doing a lot with his legs, if he ends up getting banged up or hurt or out, whatever, you got to rely on somebody. And Singleton's the guy. Now, a lot of you would be like, oh, yeah, he's unproven, all this stuff. I'm not trying to compare the two, but I'm just saying I felt the same way about in 2010 with Tyler Wilson, because I was like, man, Tyler, hadn't seen much of him. Saw him he played a little bit as a freshman, didn't go well against Texas. He played a little bit in the very beginning of 2009, like sparingly. But when Ryan Mount went out in that Auburn game, I was like, oh, geez, it's going to be a drop-off. And the dude killed it. And then Tyler Wilson ended up being one of the best quarterbacks to ever play at Arkansas. Not saying that'll be Malachi Singleton, because we don't know. But I'm just saying, don't go in with the mentality of like, oh, man, it's like a major drop-off. Trust Bobby Petrino, trust the process, and trust that it'll all work out. Appreciate everybody listening in and watching into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after us and me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel. Next Monday, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you then.